Hiya and welcome to the Career Show on 3TFM Radio. You can find us online at www.3tfm.org.uk and on the airwaves at 103.1 FM. So I'm Haighley Anderson, and today I am joined by two members of CULANN. Do you want to introduce yourself slightly and give you your names and a bit about the band?
Sure, my name's PJ Kelly and I sing in CULANN and play rhythm guitar. And I'll let Shaun introduce himself.
I'm Shaun Kelly. I play drums and try and sing a wee bit in CULANN.
So when did you discover a passion for music? Was it since a young age or something that kind of came about when you're a bit older?
I think for us both it was a big part of our sort of upbringing. Just music everywhere. Always in the car, always playing at home. And my mum and dad were really big influences in our sort of life musically. Don't think I ever really thought about music playing wise until a wee bit later on, sort of really early teens. And then we wanted to start off playing guitar really. But yeah, it was always around in our sort of upbringing. Shaun will probably testify to that as well.
Yep, absolutely. My dad could play a wee bit as well. He sort of tinkered on the piano and was a half decent guitarist and played a lot growing up. He was in his own bands as a young blade in Ireland, and I think he some of that certainly rubbed off on us.
So
the Beggar Men, that was his band, Pete.
That's right, Beggar Men, yep.
Beggar Men.
Was it your dad that kind of got you into music then? Kind of got you started in instruments and singing and all that, yeah?
Probably inadvertently. Inadvertently. He would never certainly never force it on us, but like PJ said, just being around it. When you're young and you want to forge your own path and listen to your own music, you don't want to listen to the stuff that your parents like, but around about where you end up appreciating that all the more for them introducing it to you.
Did you do music throughout school? Was it a subject you ever took, or was it just a hobby?
Yeah. I remember playing music at Glebe Primary in Irvine, the kind of wee music room, if you remember that, Shaun.
Aye.
And who was the music teacher, the piano teacher? Was it Dominguez?
I don't know, I never had.
No, I can't remember the name. Sort of piano lessons or keyboard lessons when you're younger in primary school, and then took it at secondary. Was one of my sort of favourite subjects. There was a lot of sort of a wee bit of freedom involved with it, which I quite enjoyed. And I remember some of our teachers, Mrs. Glover especially in Greenwood, was really, really good, encouraging, and I don't know, didn't kind of come down on you if you made mistakes, things like that. She was quite nurturing presence in the music department. So I always sort of remember her with fondness.
Absolutely, aye. I don't know if you went to Greenwood yourself, Haighley, but was Mrs. Glover and Mrs. Hogg. They were the two teachers that really kind of pushed us on. I remember Mrs. Hogg. She was my teacher for higher and advanced higher music, and she was sort of known as being a bit more stern than the other music teachers. But she sort of, if she saw a wee spark in you that you were interested, she certainly let me away with a lot of stuff in terms of wanting to do my own thing in music. But she's definitely encouraged us a lot.
So see, when you left school then, was there any uni or colleges you went to, or did it just straight into working?
I went to uni for a year. No, it's a good question. I went to uni following school to study business law, and I had no idea why I'd done that. Not got a clue. So I completed 1 year and was about to go back, and I just went, what am I doing here? I couldn't even tell you why I chose to do that. It's not there was something I really want to do this specifically. It just applied and I got in and I just went, but it wasn't for me at all. So I came out of that and done something very different, which was I think it was called commercial music at Ayr for a year. And again, I enjoyed parts of that, but there was no real sort of hands-on music to contend with. Well, there was a unit or two of like kind of plain music, and I think songwriting was one of them. But there's a lot of heavy stuff as well that I don't know, I didn't sort of gravitate towards. Deal with the contracts and sort of legal side of it, which was, I don't know, I just wasn't enthusiastic about it at all. I enjoyed the sort of kind of practical parts of it, like writing. I remember some of that was some good memories, but totally different, two different things: business law and then commercial music, and I never stuck with either, so it's not really a good advertisement for my further education. But really varied, yep. I should have probably went and done something more musical, I think, straight after school, but I never.
Well, you got where you are now, so.
Well,
what about yourself, Shaun?
Yeah, I actually done a music thing in here as well, for a year and dropped it. I didn't like it either. It was quite funny, the one in there that's like a who's who, a sort of Scottish music working in there. You know, there's a guy for Delamitre's one of the lecturers, and a guy Deacon Blue, the keyboarder for Deacon Blue, one of the lecturers. It's just seems to be everybody in there. But for whatever reason, just making an academic thing out of music, it didn't seem to strike a chord with me. And for that reason, I just fell by the wayside. I ended up going to do engineering, you know, draftsmanship and CAD. So totally opposite direction.
Fair enough. So why don't we go into your first song? So PJ, what was the one you were selecting?
Is this our songs that we
Yeah,
wrote?
sorry, it's your own songs, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so a couple of years ago, but the kind of writing process, we sort of maybe start off with ideas. We sort of write separately, me and Shaun, and then we sort of pair off, and you know, Ross writes quite a lot of the songs with me. So a song that me and Ross worked on a number of years ago, it's called Evonium, and basically it's obviously being from Irvine and Ayrshire on the west coast of Scotland, there's a lot of sort of history in our area, and I was just sort of looking at ideas to write about something to do with that, and I'd read an article about a sort of the ancient sort of royal seat of Scotland where Stone of Destiny was kept and where the kings were crowned, and there was a guy, a Scottish historian, his name was Morton, AJ Morton or something like that, suggested that this ancient place called Evonium could actually be Irvine. I think he had sort of references Cunningham runes, King's Home, I think, and that was known sort of historically as Erwin or Irvine. So it's a kind of ancient place, Irvine, and I thought that was a really cool subject to explore, that basically maybe the ancient sort of seat in Scotland where all the kings were crowned is where we're from. So that's the sort of history behind that song.
Standing taller than I've ever been, the earth below
So,
worries.
so can you tell me about your band and like where it came from and how it formed?
Take that one, Shaun.
Yep, me and PJ have been in bands since, we could pick up instruments pretty much. Probably for about 12 or 13 onwards, in one form or another. But I think the current lineup of CULANN has been around for about 10 years.
More than that.
Something like that, yeah. More than 10
13,
years, more than a decade. When you start getting into decades, you're getting old.
You lose track.
We all knew each other from school and from just hanging about and everyone skateboarding, messing about in the town. But just common love for music. We don't necessarily all like the same music, but we found a commonality in the music that we like to play, and we've got really tight over it over the course of the years.
So how would you describe like your genre of music? Does it change a lot? Have you got like one distinct sort of format?
I think that's
changes from song to song, I think.
Yeah, I know it's a hard question to answer for us. I think maybe some people that listen to our music will say that they sort of kind of put their finger on it, which in one aspect is a really good and positive thing, because hopefully your sound is slightly unique and you don't really want to sound like anyone else. To have your own sort of sound is what I guess a lot of people strive for. But also it makes it difficult when you're pairing sort of gigs and going down the years trying to play in a sort of a genre lineup that, some bands that are sort of like yourself, but maybe heavier or maybe lighter, that your sort of sound doesn't go down great with that sort of gig. But overall, it's important to try and carve your own sound, and I think hopefully we've got a bit of that in the band.
So like how did your current members you've got form? Was it just like through friends, or did you search for anybody? Or?
Yeah, like Shaun said, we were in bands with friends for always, or as far as back as you can remember, just your pals that are into music and into sort of different and sort of similar scenes musically, through skating as well, which Shaun referenced there. We had 2007, I think the current lineup started, so our friends Callum and Ross joined the band. Callum plays bass, Ross piano, keyboards, etc. And we just wanted maybe to kind of make the sound a wee bit more full, so instead of just maybe adding a guitarist replacing a bass player, we added a bass player and got Ross on sort of keyboard just to sort of thicken the sound and just add a whole different element, which I think is a big part of the reason why we sound like we sound now.
So, Shaun, was it like always like a ambition of yours to like have your own band, or something that just kind of like formed as like you've gotten older?
Certainly, always wanted to be in bands. Aye, as soon as you start listening to like two bands, and you maybe see the energy of a live gig or something like that, you get the bug for it. And no matter what, to want to be in a band is not to necessarily want to. It's always a dream to make a living out of it and be a success and all the rest of it, but just purely for the love of the music and to be able to play high energy gigs and write your own music, that was enough for us. It's just something we've always wanted to do since we started listening to music.
So I think we'll go into your second song now. So Shaun, what have you picked?
I don't know what's down there. Is it Bruna Veil?
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you like to know?
Just tell me a bit about where the song came from, just a bit about what your thoughts are on it are.
Well, the Bruna Veil, it's actually a song about sort of subversive ways of writing music. My dad had these great old records, the spoken word records, by a guy called Michael McLeamoir. He was like an Irish thespian, very great orator and everything. So he's reading out all these old Irish stories, and I came across a part in it that was about the penal laws in Ireland, and basically what they were was a system which to basically put down the native population. So like you wouldn't be able to say the name Ireland in song, you wouldn't be able to sing about what you want to sing. And there's a similar thing happened in Scotland where things such as language were suppressed and all that. So there was a style of songwriting that came about which everything was in code. So the song's not actually about brewing ale. Brewing of ale was a code for basically just rebelling against whatever authority was in your area. So just writing tools like that were used so that they could say what they want and not be put down by the authorities.
There was bleak isolation, mournful silence, sickening low. No sign of anybody but the strong living waters. Back to their rivers and tribute to these foes. Trampled the stars are warming 10 more when it rise in the hills that surround. The blue in the country this morning, you can see the smoke rising from miles around. The doors as they trampled the stars are warming 10 more when it rise in the hills that surround. And every time the old bottle passed around. From earliest memory, we were told to live humble, that the meaning of life was our betters' concern, that the agents of governance would provide and protect us. Our province in right was the struggle of in the country this morning, you can see the smoke rising from miles around. The doors as they trampled the stars are warming 10 more when it rise in the hills that surround. The blue in the country this morning, you can see the smoke rising from miles around. The doors as they trampled the stars are warming 10 more when it rise in the hills that surround.
Aye.
Aye.
Do I know you from somewhere?
No.
So, you from round here?
No.
Just passing through then?
No.
Well, you seem quite content there wherever you are.
Is that right?
No? Well, what's your objection with life, so?
Life, is it? I'd rather be without it. There's no utility in it. You can't eat it, nor drink it, nor smoke it in your pipe. It doesn't keep the rain off you, and it's a poor handful.
when you strip it and take it to bed after a night in the boots. Aye, you could spend 100 years trying to get the measure of it. And finally, when you see the pattern of it in your head, you die. Die like a patient dog. Aye, it's a queer contraption right enough. And I think better done with it.
But now my eyes they are open, I cannot be unseen. And I wish I had never been foolish enough for to pray. But now my eyes they are open, I'll never look away.
So I'll move on now to who writes your music and like how does that process go?
Well, it's a real sort of collaboration from all of us. It's a real collective effort, I think, and it just, you could maybe have an idea, like maybe I'll start with an idea on guitar, and Shaun does his own sort of process almost like that as well, probably, or maybe just a lyric, a melody, and then it just sort of builds and builds. So it just starts maybe just an acoustic guitar for me personally, and it could just be one idea, and then it just, again, sort of kind of almost, I was going to say spirals out of control, but in a good way. And then obviously you bounce ideas off each other, like a sort of kind of pair with Ross quite a lot of times, and we write songs together. We'll just bounce ideas off each other lyrically, melodically, and then you can kind of come to the table, all of you, when you're practicing, sort of rehearsing to record. And yeah, those are the ideas in its sort of infancy, and when you get to that stage where you're rehearsing, you hear these different things that you maybe have the blinkers on and you can't see possible, and then someone suggests something, and then it just adds and adds and adds, and eventually you end up with a song. So it's interesting to see where it comes from until where it ends up, because sometimes it can sound sort of really different. You may have the key sort of theme running through it, but it does usually end up much bigger and sort of more bombastic in a lot of our songs. So that's how I would say sort of a lot of your process is.
Have you got any like bands that like inspire you when you're like creating music? Tricky question.
I mean, for me, just I'll let you answer that, Shaun.
I was going to say, growing up when we were younger, in our sort of mid to early teens, a big eye opener were Biffy Clyro. You know, first and foremost because they were a local band, you know, doing really well. But you know, outside of that, I think at the time it was the most interesting music I'd heard up to that point, and just their way of approaching songwriting was was unlike anything I'd heard, as I say, until that point. It was just very, very free and just not really concerned about, traditional structures of music and whatnot. And I think that influenced us a lot in the beginning to just go out and do what we want instead of trying to fit in any particular genre or structure.
So you've got quite a lot of music videos on YouTube for your songs. So where do they come from? Have you got anyone you work with like all the time, or?
Yeah, it's kind of like the same sort of creative team that we've sort of worked with from the very start. Because I mean, the first video we shot was for the song "Salvation," and I think we had no idea what we were doing. But thankfully, we met a guy, Stuart, who's worked on all our videos. So he's works under the name Shootback Productions, and Stuart's done all the videos. And so it's good to have that sort of recurring theme. You have that. You can bounce ideas off each other easy. You're not saying something that you don't know how someone else is going to take. Well, because when you're being creative, it's good to be collaborative if you can. But sometimes people like their own sort of vision. So it's quite good to have that sort of relationship with Stuart. And Rab, who's in all our videos, Rab Athletic, who obviously is a well-known face and actor from Irvine. He's the recurring theme in all the videos, and we just love working with him. He's obviously consummate professional, great ideas, and when you work with someone like Rab, who's been in so many sort of productions, he tells you things that you just say, well, I mean, these are things we just would not know. In terms of just wee small details, it just adds a whole layer of sort of professionalism about it, and it makes the sort of end product. I think all the videos, we're really, really proud of them. They are they're not as important as the music, but it's good to have.
Have you got a favourite video?
Probably the last one we done, For Brown Avails, my favourite. I think it's very varied, and there's another actor working in it, my friend Cal Walker. So it's good to have sort of two actors sort of kind of bouncing off each other. I like the story. We shot it all around the Galloway Forest, which was different for us as well. And then we had a bit of dialogue in the middle, which was again quite different. And then the interior of our performance side was shot in the Ship Inn in Irvine. Again, a local landmark, legendary place in Irvine and Ayrshire in the west of Scotland. So it's nice to have all these wee things to look at and to utilise.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Shaun? You got a favourite one?
I would probably say the same. Yeah. Just for the amount that went into it, and the fact that it has got that wee bit of, I had that wee bit of actual dialogue for the boys to sink their teeth into in the middle. I think they really get a kick out of that. And, that and Jerusalem was a fun one to do as well.
So have you got any favourite memories together, or gigs or shows?
Man, good questions.
Big question.
I always remember a gig, and I've said this a few times in sort of interviews and things like that. I think it was a real turning point for the band. We played a gig. It was summertime in Broadcast in Sauchiehall Street in Glasgow. So if you know it, you go downstairs. It was absolutely roasted. I can remember that first and foremost. But it was the night I really felt a sort of momentum shift, and people were sort of. I think the album had been out. Our first album had been out for maybe a year, at least a year, and maybe more. And people were sort of singing some of the songs back. It's the first time I ever really noticed that. So that was a big sort of, wow, this is sort of kind of, these are things that you always think would be great to happen to you, is to write songs that people know well enough to sing. And that was the first time I can remember that happening. So that was a big one for me, and it was a great gig. There's some great pictures. It was absolutely packed because it's not a huge venue. I think it holds about 150. But I always cite that's probably my favourite gig. There's been other great gigs, obviously. Lucky enough to play sort of probably all of the best venues in Glasgow almost. Barrowlands, King Tut's, and the Garage and stuff like that. But that one probably for me, just in terms of having that sort of audience interaction and people singing your songs for I think remembering being the first time, that was, for me, probably my favourite.
You got the same answer, Shaun?
I would probably. I think everybody felt that sort of tangible shift that night. It's one of those sort of kind of magic line in a bottle moments. Just place absolutely sweltering, sweat dripping off the ceiling. Everybody just having a great time, and there was that kind of strange energy in there. That's for sure. Just certainly one of the best ones. And again, like some of your favourite venues, like the likes of the Garage and the Barrowlands. I've been lucky enough to go down to London and Sweden and stuff like that. It's been really good. But I would say if you would pick one specifically, that would probably be it. Aye.
So I think we'll go into the third song then. Go back to you, PJ.
Third song, so the one I've picked is Salvation. This is a song, I'm trying to think how old this is and when we wrote it. I remember living in my previous flat in Irvine and coming up with the main sort of wee intro guitar bit, and Ross coming over with wee tiny keyboard that he used to have, and I was just playing around with that. I think looking back 9 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, long time ago anyway. Actually, it's so long that I don't even remember. But it's the song that even now to this day it has the biggest sort of audience reaction when you play it all these years later. And people, I guess, sometimes I think bigger bands, they get kind of annoyed playing the hits. They say, we've got so much more to give and we're releasing an album and stuff, but I don't think I'll ever get tired of playing that song. It has a real sort of real presence when you play it live, and people you see a lot of people smiling and singing along and dancing, and it's quite uplifting. And there's a big section at the end where the crowd can get into, and it pretty much always goes down well. So that's my sort of second pick is Salvation.
Anyway.
like lockdown and the pandemic been for you as a band? Has it affected you in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not the best band to ask, because I think, to be honest with you, we should be playing so many more gigs a year, and we don't. The last couple of years, we tend to space them out so they're more of an event, if you know what I mean. So that, you know, I think sometimes you can overplay. So sometimes, and when you space out, there's again people hopefully are more excited to see you. So we don't generally play tons and tons of gigs a year, although we should play more, I think. So it's not like we had big tours that we had to cancel or anything like that. So I don't think we're affected in that sort of traditional sense. But we would have been playing gigs. We would have maybe went away to record. So, but there is that sort of maybe frustration. But on the other side of that, we've started to write a good bit of music, and we've got a lot of ideas. There's 4 or 5 songs sort of bubbling away, and that's pretty positive. I don't think I don't write songs or start to write songs very quickly. So we've got the genesis of a good few bits of music, again, just bubbling away. So potentially there's a positive that you're not able to do as much or to distract yourself as much. So musically you can start to create a wee bit more.
Have you been missing like the gig aspect of it then a lot?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Have you got any major, not major, but any plans or things like planned for when things return to normal, if they do?
It'd just be great to get gigs going again, and obviously just whenever everything's possible to do so, and you know it can be done safely, but you do miss that. And we don't generally play sort of big venues, only when you're sort of maybe supporting someone you play like a much bigger venue. Generally speaking, we put gigs on ourselves, and we would hire the venues out, and the types of venues we hire are sort of 200 capacity, 150, that sort of thing size, sorry. And those gigs, when they're busy and you've put that sort of effort into getting them there, it's really, really rewarding. And I think people enjoy it because, like I said, we don't play gigs tons. So there's a wee bit of an event, a wee bit of a lead up, and I personally really miss that.
Okay, well, thank you very much for chatting with us today. I think we'll just end it off with your 4th song. Is it the
Ecumen?
Yeah, that one.
Ecumen, yeah.
So I could tell a little bit about that one and where it came from, and then we'll just wrap it up.
It's a bit of a slower paced song than we're usually kind of known for, but we certainly wanted to explore that kind of dynamic in a more long form song. And lyrically it's about maybe sort of what we're doing to the world, what we're doing to the planet, and kind of told through the allegory of, again, old myths and legends, you know, Fomorians being, you know, sort of a hostile people that existed in the island at one point, you know, for using up the resources and destroying their environment. And we'll also get a wee nod to Alexander Peden, the prophet Peden, who was an Ayrshire Covenanter, who was known for his prophecies. And he said at one point that you could ride through Scotland and not see a reeking house, which basically, you know, a house with its fire on, or hear a crowing cock. And so I think if you were to drive through the Highlands, that would probably be no far off being true.
Yeah.
country is better, my country is cold. My country is beautiful, my country is bold. My people are better, my people are cold. My soul, it is sacred, my spirit is soul. One man came weeks from the Orient dream. All our endeavours washed to the sea. Try the neck, you may see what you find. A road never ending, stretching through time. One day a man will ride, dawn till twilight, coast to coast in his own country. River, sea, Arrogance, no hero, go crow, this is the prophecy.